Welcome back. Today in the shop we've got these body clamps from Sauter Shop. Full review coming up. Now if you follow the channel for a while, you know I recently upgraded my clamps to Bessie clamps. Full review here, and I've been really pleased with those clamps. So when Sauter Shop got in touch and said, hey Andy, we're bringing a parallel clamp to the market known as the body clamp, are you interested in a review? I said, hey, why not? So full disclosure, Andy over at Sauter Shop sent these over free of charge specifically for this review. So in this video we're going to review those clamps. We'll start off by looking at what's available in the range and the price points. We'll then have a look at the clamp itself to see what we think about the quality and the build, and then we'll just show some basic usage of these clamps and give an overall review. So let's start by looking at the all-important range. Now the parallel clamps are going to come in four sizes. You can have a 1200mm size, a 1000mm size, an 800mm size and a 600mm size. Now these come in at quite an attractive price point in the market. The 1200, the largest ones you can get, are about €60, and that's around about £51. The 1000s are about €51, which is about £44. The 800, these here, are €48, and that's about £42. And then the 600, the smaller ones, are about €41, which is about £35. And that's if you buy these things singly. Now Sauter Shop also sell these in kits, and in a kit you get two of the clamps, depending whatever size you prefer. 1, 2, 3, 4 of this framing set, and 4 of these little supports, and we'll look at the features of all those shortly. But to go with the kit, if you were to buy the 1200mm clamps in a kit, that's €120, around about £103. The 1000mm is about €109, £93. The 800s about €97, around £83, and the 600 ones are about €90, which is around about the £76–77 mark. So that actually makes pretty good value. But when you compare them to the equivalent Bessie clamps, that's about 20% less than the equivalent Bessie clamps, even if you buy those clamps in a kit. And this type of clamp are never cheap, but they are high quality clamps and they will last you a lifetime. Now one word of caution around that. After Brexit, we have now this wonderful thing called an import duty. We've always had it from products from the US, but now we have it from products from Europe as well. Now personally, I think that the minimum number of clamps you want to get in this type of range is actually 4. So you're most likely to come ahead and buy 2 of those sets which we've spoken about. And that's where if you're in the UK, you need to be cautious. Sauter Shop is a German company. It's therefore in Europe, and therefore you're shipping products from Germany into the UK, and therefore you get this wonderful thing called import duty thanks to Brexit. Now if you buy products from Europe that are over £135 in total package value, then you're going to pay anywhere between 20 to 25%. I think these are 25% import duties. The minimum number of clamps you're likely to want to buy is probably about 4, so you're likely to be buying 2 sets of these clamps. So even if you were to come along and buy the smallest clamps, the 600mm, you're round about the 150 price mark, which means you're going to incur 25% import duty, thanks to Brexit, which is going to take those up by a further 25%. So any price savings you actually get compared with the Bessie clamps that you can get distributed in the UK and avoid that taxation, sort of makes any cost savings here a bit irrelevant. But if you're in Europe, fantastic, they're well worth looking at and they do give you some value for money. Let's have a look at the quality of these and see whether the quality holds out as well. Now these clamps I have here are the 800mm clamps. Now if I put this onto its maximum clamping capacity, I'm actually getting a working distance of around about 810mm, so slightly over the claimed 800. And talking to Sauter Shop, that's pretty consistent through the range, so you're always going to get more than the quoted amount, which is great because you definitely get the quoted capacity on these clamps. Now it's made out of a hard plastic, and that plastic is slightly pliable, so it's not going to split and crack on you. Now the quality of the moulding on this plastic is not the best I've ever seen. I can certainly see here there's some moulding marks left on where that's been broken out of the mould, and all these edges don't line up, and there are slightly sharp edges on these as well. Like most of these clamps, it comes with these black non-marring surfaces and they slide off. Now in theory they're replaceable, but I've not seen those available as an add-on or an option, but I'm sure you'll be able to get hold of them. They're held on with a slight dovetail lip that sits around inside here, and that profile is copied inside the non-mooring surface, and that simply just slots on as required. Now I do like the fact that these surfaces can come off, because when you get glue on these are slightly flexible, so you can flex it and you can peel the glue off, and even bang it into some warm water to keep them clean, and that's going to extend the longevity of the clamps. As you can see, you've got one face here, you've got one face here, and you've got one face there as well. The body itself is actually held together by these quite substantial looking Allen bolts, and you can see they come through all the way through. Get that glue there. And once again, the finish of this isn't perfect. Some of these are nice and flush and look quite professional. Others, for some random reason, protrude up, and others here aren't really fitting into the casing correctly. So you can definitely see a compromise on the quality on the build on this, and to an extent the quality of the materials. Now the handles themselves come down to what feels like a plastic screw that comes into a steel housing inside the frame here, and then this lever here that takes the clamping force also appears to be a very, very hard plastic. Now how long that's going to last I don't know. Certainly on the Bessies all that is a metal assembly, but on this one again that appears to be a very, very high quality plastic, but plastic nonetheless. Now the handles themselves are relatively small. They're made of a slightly pliable plastic, and in use they're reasonably comfortable and they're quite grippy. They're quite narrow in diameter and they're quite narrow in length. I've not got overly large hands, and gripping that it feels quite natural in my hand. Now some of the competitors to this clamp, you do get a torque position there, and you can bang in a hex handle of some sort, and that gives you additional torquing ability. And that's fantastic if you're beginning to get on in years and a bit of arthritis is creeping in. To have that additional torque capacity is great. Having said that, I've never used it on the other clamps that I've got, but I think as my hands become more arthritic, as I continue to pursue this passion of mine, that could be quite useful. So it's disappointing to see that's not on there. The bars are again a nice steel, fantastic, and it's great to see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 serrated edges, and it's those serrated edges that this handle grips into just to secure the clamping, and it works well. And one thing I love about any of these clamps is that once you put it in position, that doesn't fall down. I've had cheaper clamps where this will slide down on you, but this stays where you put it, and that's great. And there's nothing worse than working on a large panel and you've got these adjusted and you pick them up and they've slid all over the place when you're in the middle of a glue up. So I like the fact that these stay where you put them, and that's certainly something in their favour. Now all the clamps, regardless of buying them singly or in the set, come with these supports, and they just simply clip onto the frame, and that allows you to support your wood during clamping. And you can see that that raises the wood ever so slightly off the bar, and that just stops the wood getting damaged, and also stops the bar getting covered in glue as well, which is awesome. These adjust incredibly well. You simply lift the handle up and then it will slide quite freely forward and backwards. Drop the handle down and then you're into the clamping mode, so super easy to adjust. And if anything, that's slightly easier than the Bessie to adjust, because on the Bessies you are lifting it up and down, and I often get confused, so just lifting it up, sliding it and fixing it is great. On the back here you do get this little foot. That comes off quite easily. You just undo that thumb screw and that slides out. But again, the materials on this are a hard plastic. Again, from a moulding, they've got sharp edges on them. It doesn't feel quite finished, and certainly on the nail on this one, I've got quite a severe dint in the corner already, although I've only used them on one project, and that's quite sharp in the hand. But that does come off, and that coming off allows this to slide off, and that can then come back in, slide down the clamp, and now you've got that into a spreading mode, and that's where this face here comes in. Put that inside a box, put the clamping pressure on, that will spread the box for you. So it's a nice feature to have, and that comes as pretty standard on most of this type of clamps. Now, one thing I do like about this design of stop over the Bessies actually is that it's adjustable, and yes, you can have it right at the end which just stops your clamp falling off, but you can use it anywhere down the length and it simply locks into place, and that feature is really useful. I make quite a lot of cutting boards and charcuterie boards and those sort of things, so I tend to batch out a long glued up laminated panel, probably about the length of the bench, clamp that up, and then I chop it down to the sizes and go ahead and make what I need to make. So I'm typically using my clamps in this sort of orientation going across, and typically the boards might be that sort of length. Now, I've no support here at the back end of my clamp, and you can see it tips. So even when I've got this sorted out, I bang the wood in there. It's not a big problem, but I am fighting the clamps a little bit to make sure everything lies flat. This is a super simple idea. I can slide this little foot here to rest on my bench and tighten it down. Now this bar is now staying parallel to my bench and I'm no longer fighting that wood. So that little adjustable foot is actually a super simple idea and I really like it. It works incredibly well. Final thing to talk about are these black towers here, the framing set. So you can put your two base clamps in this sort of configuration like so, to whatever is the right size for your project, and then the rest of your top two clamps in like so, and that allows you to create clamping pressure in multiple parts of your project. And imagine if this was some sort of glue up where you had four sides, you can start to see how valuable that would be, because you're not fighting the clamps, it gives you a nice secure surface, and I can put clamping pressure on all sides of my projects. So there you go, I can think of nothing else to say about the parallel clamps from Sauter Shop. They do the job. If you're in Europe and you're not going to get stung by import duties, these are a very, very credible alternative to the Bessie clamps. The Bessie clamps are slightly higher quality in the build and the construction, but in use I can tell no difference. I've done quite a lot of laminated panels with these and they've never let me down, and I've always got good quality pressure throughout the project, so they are fantastic in use, and I say about 20% cheaper than Bessie's like for like. But if you're in the UK and you're going to pay import duties on these, shipped to your door, you're like for like price point with the Bessies. And sadly, the Bessies do have a slightly better build quality, slightly more robust materials, and a slightly more ergonomic handles on that would always push me in favour of the Bessies if you're in UK. Europe, very, very viable product, well worth looking at. Think of nothing else to say, so I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you next time on the Woodgrafter. Take care.